Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast. On our 101st episode, we watch an anime every 2 weeks. We come back and we talk about it. And we're actually following up on our episode 100 Spectacular, where we rewatched what we watched back in episode 3, which was ReZero, episodes 1 through 13. Now, to finish that up and really get ourselves ready for ReZero Season 2, we are finishing up talking about episodes 14 through 25. We're finishing the first season. This is not a celebration, so there won't be old clips. We don't even know what we said back then. We're going to really approach this as a new thing. There was huge plot points I had forgotten about, so it really was watching it for the first time in many ways. But to talk about it and carry on with this podcast, I need the help of my co-host. And first off, we have the Free Willy to my whale, Jeremy.
You know, when I was a little kid and that movie first came out, I actually liked it. But later in life, I met an English guy, and he told me what Willy meant in England. And it completely changed that reference for me. So, Free Willy, that's just something else, man.
Maybe I should have switched these.
Probably should have switched them.
How are you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been extremely busy last couple of weeks. So I really haven't gotten a chance to do much other than watch this anime and goat stuff.
Goat stuff. I like that.
Goat stuff. Yeah. It's really been fun wrangling the new goat. She's bigger and a lot more rebellious. So it's been interesting.
Very cool. We also have the Pinocchio to my Monstro, Jason.
Is my nose getting bigger? Because I really like Troy as the host. Ooh. Come on. That was awesome.
Necessary.
Actually,
what have I ever done to you?
What?
What have I ever done to you?
Really?
All right, Jason. What you been up to?
I have been playing Minecraft like normal, but I won't get into too many details because Troy gets sleepy. Just imagine if you're playing Minecraft, but the zombies can break through your walls, and when creepers get too close to you, they go invisible before they explode.
This is like just a griefing hate yourself mod. Is that?
Oh yeah, and skeletons, they shoot double the speed and they dual wield. So like if you get too close, they pull out a sword.
Oh jeez.
Oh yeah, so it's been a lot of fun.
Is your son still playing it with you?
Not this pack.
Yeah, I was wondering. Like, no,
Jeremy,
no, I'm out.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
How many questions did Jason ask you about anything you've been doing?
Oh
Zero.
well, you know,
Zero
he's just
questions.
not really.
Just let Jason go. It's really not even Jason's fault how boring his topics get. It's really you.
People want to know, man.
It's your fault that right now somewhere I'm wearing headphones on my couch and I'll have to get up and walk over to my computer to edit this so that we don't lose more viewers.
It's good to have things to do.
Okay.
Well, it takes all the superpowered mods and it makes them useful, basically.
No one asked about that.
Oh, man.
Jeremy did.
Yeah.
See, I can blame it on him.
All right.
Yeah.
My name is Troy. And I don't think I mentioned this last time. I watched The Old Guard and I watched Palm Springs. One is a movie that came out on Netflix. One is a movie that came out on Hulu because that's how I watch movies these days. You have to release them on streaming because, you know, that's just life now. I liked both of them a lot. Old Guard was cool. Immortals, We Can't Die. Charlize Theron is right up there with Keanu Reeves and is an action star, I think. I think it's time she got her due if she hasn't already. And Palm Springs is a time loop romantic comedy that's like Groundhog's Day, but with drugs. And if you got stuck in a time loop with someone else, what would that change? and Andy Sandberg, and he's very funny, and I really liked it. So
Hey,
good.
it looks like the audience kind of agrees with the critics on that one.
Who cares?
Must be pretty good.
I know that we are literally a show where we offer our critical reviews, but I am so done with critical reviews about everything.
Andy Samberg is talented.
Yeah, he
Talented
is
comedian.
very good.
And I haven't finished The Last of Us 2 yet. I'm literally at the end, and my PlayStation, the game crashed, and I had to go back. I lost an entire day's worth of playing, and I've caught back up, but I haven't had time to finish it before record. I did want to give like a final, hey, here's what I thought, but I'm not ready yet. I like it so far. All right, let's talk about the anime before Jeremy says any comments.
Yeah, you knew it. You knew it. I'm biting my tongue, man.
You can yell at me after the podcast. Okay, episodes 14 through 25, non-spoiler review. Jeremy, what'd you think of them?
Well, I mean, it should be obvious. I loved it. I mean, it was great. All the characters that I like, getting to see them go through even more of a harrowing experience that really just kind of chisels their personalities and relationship, especially Subaru. And this is really, for me, this is where Rem shines and becomes best girl. And I don't know if I could say it any more robotic and artificial, but yes. So I absolutely love it. I recommend it highly, and man, it's so worth it. You know who you are. Try to get through the first episode, man. It's worth it. It's so good.
All right, Jason, what'd you think?
Straight up masterpiece. This is probably the critically best anime I've ever seen ever. And the story is so dense that this isn't something you can come into saying, you know, I want to watch a quick anime where I don't have to think a lot. There's so much nuance and underlying storytelling being told here that you literally miss half the anime if you just watch it in the background. And I think probably one of my favorite parts, especially about this half, is that the main character not only is fighting the bad guys of the story, but he's also fighting himself. And you really don't see that in character development in a lot of stories. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one.
All right. For my review, I mean, we like this anime so much, we watched it again on purpose. And that really speaks for itself. And this is the half I like more. This is the one I most remember fondly. You know, we're past a lot of the setup. We know how the world works on a general term. And we get to meet a whole new cast of characters that, you know, they changed the setting around. And so it's like this whole new central cast. While the original central cast is off doing something else, and only the main character remains. It's fantastic. It's almost all one big story arc instead of 2 or 3 like last time. It's a fantastic, and yeah, there's details I was picking up the second time. There's details I've read about since that it's just, wow, this is really good storytelling, and we don't get that a whole lot. Probably not since, or The Promised Neverland is probably the one that comes most to mind of hitting close to that many details and mattering what's drawn in the background and where eyes are looking. But obviously this came first. So, and I'm very excited for season 2. Very excited.
Yeah.
All right. The OP and the closing credits. What did you guys think?
I love them. I'm not sure if I like the first half or not. And I think I like them for different reasons. I'd probably put all of them in the same playlist because they're good, and the visuals are fantastic. I think I like the visuals of the OP of this half better than the first one, just for the simple fact of that ending scene where the hands are coming around Amelia's face. Yeah. It's just so like impactful of what the story's telling.
Yeah, and you don't even really find out about that until like the last few episodes. How does that factor in? But absolutely. I loved the opening. Again, Myth and Royd, fantastic work. The outro was good, but it was a completely different flavor. It was very much what's Amelia doing while she's torn away from Subaru, right? and not really torn away, but she has distanced herself from him intentionally from the first half of the season. And I actually thought this was something that played into how the first season, or the first, how the opening played. Is in the opening, all of the art showed the conflict that they had because of that relationship, big fight that they had in the last few episodes. And it didn't click with me before, I don't think, but that's what this was all about. It was like hanging over all of this entire half like a miasma. And so it's as much about them resolving their relationship issue that developed as it is about the story, about him surviving, about anything else in this world. And it was interesting to see that, because I don't think I caught that before. But yeah, the opening and the outro were both completely about that.
What's also, just as a quick note, from episode 14 to episode 25, in the actual timeline, only about 3 days has passed.
Yeah, and it's very short.
That blew my mind. Like, wow, they didn't make you feel that. And yeah, it doesn't feel like that for Subaru either. So I think that's another testament to their storytelling power of, like, yeah, that you're going on this journey with him.
As far as the music,
oh God, so good.
They don't hit me as hard. For some reason, the music's just not grabbing me. The outro maybe a little bit. I really liked it when they played at the end of the one episode. Both songs play in one episode. I thought that was cool. But visually, love the intro. Yeah. Outro visually was fine. But sometimes, like, an episode will end and it's like, what about not an outro? What about just credits? Like, you just watched a movie, and I'm like
classical music playing.
Yeah, I feel like I just watched a huge movie, a huge epic saga, and credits rolling makes way more sense than an anime outro.
Yes.
So yeah, I really, really appreciated that choice on their part. All right, let's go from here to our spoiler section. So this is your spoiler warning. If you have not watched ReZero,
what are you doing with your life?
Please! No. All right. So we are going to assume you've also seen the first 13 episodes, or at least listen to us talk about them in our last podcast. So we're going to go straight from there. We catch up with Subaru. He's currently hanging out back at the Capitol. He's being healed by Felix or Felis or both.
Felix.
Honestly, there's multiple pronunciations of most of these names from what I've gathered, because there's like light novel pronunciation, anime pronunciation, and dub pronunciation.
So I watched the sub the first time around, and so this time I wanted to watch the dub to see if I noticed any major differences. Mm-hmm. And also I like dub better. I know I'm a heretic. But they pronounce his name in the dub as Felix. So.
And sometimes in the sub they do too, and sometimes they pronounce it as Felis, or at least they wrote Felis in the subtitles.
Ferris, Ferris, but he's actually in the light novel called Felix Argyle. Like, if you go on the ReZero wiki, it's funny because the title of his page is Ferris, but then in his ID card it says Felix.
Maybe someone that's more familiar with the overarching lore and light novels can correct us.
I would just say that it's probably multiple choice, and anything that's close we'll just accept. Like I found out today, Betelgeuse is actually Betelgeuse, and the original writer is like, no, that P is important to the story. And I'm like,
didn't know that.
Like, what? What the? If Mother's Basement's comment section is to be believed. Just putting that out there. But yeah, I was reading through comments on his new video that literally came out the day we recorded this. They were talking about him. They're like, no, it's actually with a P. And the light novel author said that's important to the plot. And I'm like, oh God, okay, we'll get there. Subaru. Subaru. He is our main character. Just had a huge fight with his crush, and she has crushed his soul. He got beat up by a jerky, uptight knight, and now he's stuck here in the Capitol with just a blue-haired, not that good-looking maid to take care of him.
Oh no, that's the heresy right there. That's right.
You guys, it doesn't matter what you guys say about a best girl because the main character agrees with me. I win.
Actually, he wants them both.
No, she's number two. He literally names.
Yeah, he did
He
spell
Does
that out.
name level 2, but maybe that's just one of the other things that he has to learn through dying many times.
And who does? I mean, he likes Amelia. And who else does he like?
Well, he likes Krush by the end of this.
Yeah.
He said, if I didn't have a number 2,
Well, who's the number 2?
Well, it's Rem.
It's Rem.
Who's Rem?
Oh, I see what you did there. Oh,
yeah. All right.
Wow, reaching
right,
back to 2018.
What you guys think of Subaru this half?
Think of what?
What do you think of Subaru this half?
I always complain about character growth, character arcs, slow burn storytelling. He's fantastic in this arc. He goes from whiny brat to I need to get my act together to desperation to even more desperation to I need to grow up and then executing on growing up. And I think so all the pieces are falling together that he's going to become an amazing politician in this world. At least that's what it seems like, because that seems to be his only superpower besides being touched by the witch, is that he can talk people into these ends up being extravagant plans because he gets to try them over and over again.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, he that growth from whiny brat to stand-up man is just it's an amazing journey to go on with him.
Yeah, Subaru is great. I really enjoyed the moments where he was trying to essentially verbalize and vocalize how he views himself. Like, for once, he finally has to confront his own frustration with how he spent his life, and that he doesn't have anything to show for it. He doesn't have skills beyond his 70-kilogram grip or whatever. He just doesn't have a lot that he's bringing to the table. And this is something that bothers him on a subconscious level, but he never vocalizes it, never really deals with it. And there is a point where he has to do that. And, that's a major pivotal point for him as far as growing as a character. And, that's facilitated by the most important female character in the season. So, for character development. So,
Just saying.
He's great. Yeah, just saying.
She's so important she gets erased from the story twice.
Oh!
My thoughts on Subaru. To be fair, we've all watched Mother's Basements videos on this since we had last seen it, but we've had a lot of our own thoughts too. So some are probably going to be stolen. I think this might be stolen. I think he made a comment about how most isekai are about escapism. Like, hey, the real world sucks. Here's this fantasy world. Yay. And I'm not bagging on that because that's what Star Wars is to me. Like, I get it. Like Shield Hero, he gets away from the real world and then that fantasy world breaks him. This one, we have a character who thinks he's getting escapism, but he's not. He literally has to learn how to function in society and grow up rather than escape the real world. He's got to be like, no, you got to deal with the real world. You got to be a part of it. And now the stakes are life and death for the first time for him. And, I want to mention in our Twitter comments, we have a listener. He mentioned he's not a fan of Subaru. He's trying to get through the first episode. Character doesn't strike him very well. My wife very much agrees with him from the episodes she's seen of him. She's like, yeah, this is not a fun character to watch. And I remember, Jason, last time we talked, you said I had to remember that he's 18, right? He's a kid, and you qualified your answer with that. So yeah, this is a character that is not super likable, and I get how people would think that. But like Jeremy said, he in this half recognizes his flaws. After that fight, he's at his lowest point. All his flaws have been exposed, and this entire back half of the season is him coming to terms with that and learning how to grow from that. And that's one of the most satisfying character arcs I've seen in a long time. So I'm a huge fan of Subaru.
Yeah, one really important thing about if you're going to make a story about a character that's supposed to grow and get rid of their vices and get rid of their flaws is that they've got to start with them. So they're naturally going to be so frustrating to watch because, you know, you're watching something that's broken and the whole story is about it being fixed.
I think one of the hardest things about Subaru is he's not just flaws and then true character underneath. He is true character underneath, flaws on top of that, and then a masked persona on top of that. So there's that bravado. I'm the hero. I'm super flirtatious. But then underneath there's this self-loathing and I don't want to do anything. I don't want to participate. I'm not worth being part of this. And then underneath that is a good-hearted guy who wants to do the right thing. And this story really exposes each layer at a time. So when you start and you're getting all that false bravado and it's very clear it's false bravado, it's like, oh my gosh, that is hard to put up with. I can understand that very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it to speak to that, you know, you get that scene where he snaps at Amelia and goes, "I just need your name." Like, you know, "Oh, I'm such the hero." He goes from that kind of false bravado, false confidence to what we get at the end of the story, where he is confident because he's, you know, he's not only he's addressing his issues, but he realizes that he needs to stop being fake. And I think one of the best lines that Wilhelm gives him is, "Stop trying to become strong. You just need to be strong."
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, so the scene we find him, he's actually sparring with Wilhelm. Wilhelm, we meet him in last season. We thought he's like a butler guy, and we find out, hey, no, he's actually the master swordsman of the kingdom. He's this great, powerful knight. I have a few questions on how knights work in this world because they, even like separate families, are joining different factions, right, for this new leadership, but they all are still on the same team. But it seems like they can. Are they also enemies? Like, is Julius and Wilhelm enemies? Is Wilhelm and Reinhard technically enemies because they've joined separate camps, even though they're both in the same family?
So I think they use the term enemy a bit loosely when they're talking about political factions. Because So, for instance, the reason I say that is because all the Knights of Lacutica were standing together in the selection process. Because I think they're a unified military force. I think there are factions of that unified military force that have sworn allegiance to particular families. But I think when they use the word enemy in that colloquial sense, they're talking about political enemies.
Yeah. So I guess my real question is, where do their true allegiance lie? Is it with the kingdom first, or the person they're? Because Wilhelm calls Crush his master, and they all do refer to their master, which is the candidate they've backed. Who are they truly serving?
I think they're truly serving Lagunica. So what I mean by that is, currently they're protecting and supporting the people that they believe are the correct rulers. But once a ruler is selected, I believe the entire knight force will then slide under the new ruler.
So what if there's an equal split between two different candidates and it comes down to battling to decide who wins?
Well, I don't know if it would turn into war. I mean, there's no indication to say how that would turn out.
Okay, so what if the council said, hey, we do know the witch cult's going to show up in Roswell's area. We're sending knights to go do it. Like, Wilhelm, Julius, you go. And Anastasia and Crush are like, no, we're not helping a rival. Whose orders do they follow?
I think Anastasia and Crush would win because they allowed what's her name? Flan? What was her name? I can't remember her name, but the last candidate that Reinhard found.
I don't think the council has any power over the knights.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
I mean, that's just my opinion.
They did demonstrate that they have power and authority to command because they were going to arrest Feltz. Yeah, God, I keep wanting to call her Flan. They wanted to, and they ordered the arrest of her.
But the guys the guys that arrested him were the knights of or not knights, but they were the guards of the palace. Nobody in the white uniform was arresting him.
That's true. But I'm just saying that they demonstrated authority, and I don't know how far that authority goes. They wouldn't have needed to tell knights to do it.
I'm sure this is spelled out in one of the light novels, but I don't know.
Yeah. Can I be honest? I'm super tempted to jump into the light novels right now. I'm just,
to just get ahead.
I have this itch to really just even break out into the lore and really just start getting into this world. Not even to find out what happens to Subaru. I really want to know just everything backwards.
Yeah.
Which that's out there apparently.
Yeah,
I've been fighting as well not to do that.
I need your thoughts on Wilhelm.
Wilhelm's
fantastic
awesome
character.
Yeah, I love he's sword butler.
His backstory nearly got me again. His love for his wife that he never proclaimed to her until she was dead.
Yep.
But also that sentiment of I want to be the one to protect you, not you protect me, even though she was severely outclassing him in every way until the very end. I mean, being able to catch his sword and then disarm him in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't just that too. It wasn't just I want to be the one to protect you. It was this isn't a life she chose. She just is the best, and he's like, I'm going to take that away from you, and then you get to be who you want to be.
Right.
But then the question becomes like he does that for her, right?
But she's obviously
then
still a
she
warrior.
still goes out and fights and dies to the whale. So I mean,
so I want to throw in a couple clarifications. One thing is that Wilhelm says that he married her and became the last seat.
So he's like the lowest member of the family.
The lowest member. He did not take her spot. So that would mean that when he married her, she was able to have a family, but she still couldn't give up her sword because no one took her spot. At least that's the impression that I got from their relationship, and that would explain why she was still out there fighting.
Apparently, there's a whole light novel on his backstory.
Yeah,
there's a whole series.
I'd love to find that out. Yeah.
Oh, we got to be careful about falling into these rabbit hole, guys, or we're gonna be here for hours.
Yeah.
We're never gonna get through this.
Yep.
I thought he was so cool because we'll talk about it later. How about that?
Yeah. Because he was really there to influence and help Subaru grow quite a bit, but also to be really badass, kicking butt on that giant whale.
He's very cool. And just like Jason, the scene got me again. His emotional moment. We'll talk about it.
He doesn't even get a ton of a screen time either. Like that's how good the storytelling is.
He's so cool. He's just so cool. He's a cool contrast to the main character. He was a weakling in a world full of super powerful guys, and he just wanted to get better to protect the girl he loved. They have that connection. So it instantly just plugs into Subaru's character arc. You plug into that and you kind of steal some energy from it, and you build this backstory up. And okay, this character's awesome. He's a favorite now, and you gotta love Wilhelm. He talks with Reinhard, right? Reinhard is a knight from the last half. He's in the same family as Wilhelm. And he's the guy with the sword so powerful that he can't use it unless the enemy's strong enough. And that guy's like, hey, that knight Julius you had a fight with, you guys should make up. And Subaru's like, nope, he's a jerk. Get out of here. And Subaru's training with Wilhelm to get strong enough to beat Julius, or because he got beaten by Julius. But even Wilhelm's like, yeah, you don't actually care. You're going through motions here. You're stalling. You're spinning wheels. And Wilhelm knocks him out. And he wakes up in some character's lap. I don't remember who.
You're the worst.
And him and Rem then go shopping. They stop at the apple vendor. Maybe it's the apple vendor, man. Maybe every time you walk by an apple vendor, it's just a save point. And then when he goes back to the mansion he's staying at, the owner of the mansion asks him to have a drink, and this is where we really get a chance to meet one of the other candidates. She is basically the military version candidate She believes in strong forces. She believes in, she's the candidate who's buying weapons and building her forces for military might. Her name is Krush. And what are your guys' thoughts on her?
I think she's fantastic. Her demeanor, the way she interacts with the world, and I love her superpower, which is I can tell when you're lying. They don't abuse it in this story, which is amazing. And she's a great contrast to Priscilla, who is by definition worst girl in this.
She's so bad.
She's the worst. But yeah, she's I do like her mostly business attitude. But that by the end, Subaru can not only gain a trust but gain her friendship. And it's so well earned. It's so good. But yeah, I like this character.
I like how she doesn't take any nonsense from Subaru. She calls him out every single time that he, makes the wrong move or tries to do something desperate or rash, in multiple timelines. And it's fascinating to see how much she influenced his growth. Yeah, I mean, just getting her on his side was a major obstacle that he had to go through. Not only that, but another power she has is she can hit you with her sword from a really, really long ways away. And that's cool. The 100-man strike, I think it was, or something like that.
Yeah.
Basically Link's sword.
Yeah.
The Master Sword.
As long as you're full health.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like her. I really appreciate the way this anime introduces these candidates as not for villains to be overcome. But she's also not, hey, I'm a super good guy either. She's a realist. She's here to achieve a goal. She's not here to help her enemies or rivals achieve that goal. And she's like, hey, yeah, saving that person's life just really doesn't fit what I need to do. She won't, even though she's not also like, oh, I hope they die. That isn't her either. Even Priscilla, worst girl, we don't get to spend a lot of time with, and I have a feeling she's going to be more complex than we think. Yeah. She just has made some very bad first impressions, so it's completely fine to call her worst girl. I agree
a lot of them.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate the way they flesh out these candidates. So, and that definitely goes for Cruz. She's very cool. I love the way she leads her army. Powerful woman is cool. I'm into her. I'm happy for her to be number 3.
Yep.
After some time, Rem warns Subaru that something is wrong back home due to her psychic link with her twin sister Ram. And so Subaru's like, okay, then we're leaving. Let's go home. Krush is like, hey, remember that huge fight you had with your boss, your girlfriend, Emilia, and how she doesn't want you rushing off to save her because you're not capable of doing it? Maybe you should stay, because as soon as you leave, my business dealing of helping you is over. And even Felix, who is the cat boy healer knight of the group,
adorable, by the way.
Uh-huh.
But always quick to point out exactly what you're doing wrong. Who's like, hey, if you go to help, that'll be pointless. You're not going to be helping. This just pisses Subaru off, and so him and Rem leave. They stay at an inn on their travels. They have a really nice, quiet moment together where she helps him get to sleep and tells him how much she cares about him. And then she abandons him at the inn so he won't get himself hurt. Again, another person basically saying, you can't help. You're not going to be capable of this. And so he hires a merchant named Otto, who doesn't have a lot of character flavor, but he's just basically this paranoid merchant who always gets caught up in Subaru's plans. And him and Otto travel almost all the way to the mansion until the ground dragons, which are the horses, get scared, and so he has to walk the rest of the way. And when he reaches the village of Roswell's Manor, everyone's dead. Everyone's been murdered by really fancy knives. And then he goes to the mansion and he sees Rem's dead. He finds the children from the village dead. He finds Ram is dead. And then he goes into the basement, which is covered in ice, and he touches it and he freezes to death almost instantly.
First, he loses his hand.
He loses his
fingers.
Yeah. And I keep forgetting because it comes to scenes like this where you're like, oh, that's right. This is also a horror anime. I forgot.
Yeah.
Psychological horror. Very much
because
so.
he trips backwards thinking, oh, my finger is but then you realize, no, he didn't trip backwards. He just lost his leg.
Yep. And his fingers.
Yeah. Think of Terminator 2, except for to a human person. Not great.
Yeah.
Not good.
He wakes back up and he returns by death, which is his power. And he's back in the market at the apple vendor with Rem a few days before she gets the warning something's wrong.
It's a day, isn't it? Or is it 2?
I think it's more. I thought he had 4 days in the mansion before she gets the warning.
Yeah, because she said, we've been here 3 days and you haven't gone outside and done anything. But then, wait a minute, because then they're outside going shopping. But it's still a few days because, well, the rest of the events do show that.
So, yeah, I'm a little iffy on the timeline, but I know he's already been here a couple of days, and there's a couple more days before the cult of the witch attacks Roswell's mansion.
I think the way it goes is when he wakes up at the apple vendor, he's got the rest of that day, the next day, and then the day after that. So about a total of 3 days until the witch's cult will attack.
Yeah. That sounds right.
I feel like there's one more day just because you need time to put together an army to kill a white whale. But it doesn't really matter.
Because, the dog. And the reason I say that is because when he does finally convince her to attack, they go from apple vendor they go around to talk to the capitalist lady. And then he has the conversation that night, and then they spend all night gathering men and resources, and then they leave the next morning.
Okay, doesn't matter.
Okay.
This time, so when he reappears, he returns by death, and he's basically in shock. And Rem basically drags him around, takes him back to the mansion, and is like, I don't know what's wrong with him. We've tried healing him. Nothing's physically wrong with him, but he's just dead to the world. And so she's like, I guess I'm going to take him back home. And they do. She travels with him back to the mansion. When they get to the mansion, the witch's cult actually attacks them and steals Subaru away into a cave where he's locked up in chains, and while Rem is out fighting the cult. And he meets the leader of this faction of the cult. And this is Betelgeuse. It doesn't matter.
One of the best bad guys to have graced us in anime. Oh, yeah. Good lord.
So yeah, what did you guys think of this crazy, lovely man?
Well, my brain trembles.
I think one of the so to steal another line from Mother's Basement, I think one of the really great things is he's drawn very Americanized, like as in a cartoon, Americanized cartoon. Popping eyes, very defined facial features, and his movements are amazing. He's got this like thing where he's like doing this to the side, and then he comes back over here. But he's absolutely out of his mind. But his interactions with Subaru and the way he talks about the witch nearly mirror Subaru's relationship with Amelia, and it's creepy and it's very enlightening about what the logical conclusion of that kind of obsession can be.
Yeah. Plus, just seeing this character who winds up essentially being able to be immortal, basically, man, I don't know where I was going with this, but I've got his picture up on the left side of my screen, and it's creeping me out every time I look over there.
So the question is so Beetlejuice is not a human. He's a spirit that hops from body to body. Is that right?
No, he was a person, but he's been changed.
Okay.
So it seems to me that all of the witches' servants have some kind of almost, if this is a video game world, game-breaking power, including Subaru, who has the rewind by death. We'll find out the whale can split into multiple copies of himself to protect himself, and
Not to mention being a whale.
History.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy can take over other people. That seems to be very much on point of like, you have some way of cheating death if you're part of this group.
And he does call Subaru out as possibly being Pride. He keeps asking, "Are you Pride?" And he asks him more than one timeline when he encounters him too, which is really fascinating. But yeah,
Which
God,
kind of fits
awesome.
with his flaws, by the way.
being
Being
absolutely.
prideful.
I mean, he even picked the most prideful dragon later, a dragon known for its pride.
But he's also slothful. Look, I love
Oh.
Beetlejuice.
That's what I wanted to say. I'm sorry, I just remembered.
Good.
Okay, so the thing about Beetlejuice that cracks me up is how he's constantly talking about how slothful he is, but he's also talking about how diligent he is and how diligent in his slothfulness. And that to me comes across as this really complex, multi-layered character of craziness, where his craziness maybe is brought on by these two opposing forces within himself, where he's like, I'm the Archbishop of Sloth, right? I'm not supposed to be active. He praises his followers when they're, slothful, when they don't do something, but then he kills them because they didn't do it. So he does that to himself as well, where he's like, I'm slothful. I'm the Archbishop of Sloth. This is great, but I have to be diligent because I have to get these things done, but I'm slothful, but I have to be sloth. So having these two things that are constantly, in complete conflict within himself as a personality, I think that's what drives him to his insanity. And I think it's really entertaining and fascinating to watch because he's screaming it the whole time. I don't know if I picked up on that last time, but it's really cool.
And I do love how he flips from one emotion to the other within seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mentioned in our last episode with the assassin girl whose name I forget, how she was like Joker, like you just don't know the moment she's gonna snap on you, and this guy very much has that too. He like, hey, I'm your buddy, I'm your pal. Wait, I need to murder you. Are you okay? Are you okay, dead corpse? And that's just the way he is. I absolutely love him as a villain. He's so creepy. Because he is an entity riding in a body, he has no self-preservation. So, like the way he activates his powers, he literally bites down on his fingertips and breaks them. And it's so creepy to watch. He also drives me a little bit crazy when I watch him because it's not possible. And last time I watched, I was like, man, is he and Subaru the same character? And I'm like, no, that can't be. And I started watching it this time, and I'm like, it can't be. And I don't think it is. I really don't. But there's so many things that they have in common that it won't go away from my brain. And like Jason just mentioned, like he'll do this weird dance. Subaru does that too when he meets people. He'll take poses and like
yes.
And there's a point where because he was too slothful, Beetlejuice starts bashing his face into a rock and making himself bleed. In this scene in the cave with the chains, Subaru starts bashing his head into the ground out of despair, making his face bleed. Yep. They have facial expressions that match each other. I do not think this is Subaru, but if the anime said in the next episode, oh, that was Subaru from a different timeline, I'd be like, oh, that completely makes sense. That his consciousness left Subaru's body and has been traveling, and this is the state he is in, especially because the link between his love for the witch and Subaru's love for Amelia. That there's no coincidences in this anime. I don't think it's a coincidence. But I don't know what it is. I can't figure it out. It drives me crazy when I watch them.
And I'm wondering, and you guys told me I'm probably wrong, but I'm wondering if the witch pulls her sins from other worlds in order to get them.
I don't disagree with that.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
I think it's really interesting, but I think it's really interesting, but I just don't. I think that Betelgeuse has a history here, because like he's a Mathers, right? He's the guy that's been in charge of this area. He didn't just like show up or something. I think he's noble blood that's been here a while.
The body he's in, or the body he started in?
That's a really good question. But I actually think it's him. Betelgeuse, Roosevelt, whatever. It just sounds like a noble title too.
Oh, Romano Conti or something like that?
Yeah, like he's a count or something.
I agree. But I could also see Subaru making up some weird name because he thought it was a funny pun.
That's true. That's true.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, there's always this part of my mind that's like, I could make a case for that. I'm like, no, it's not the thing. Let it go.
Yeah.
Because I do think Subaru is Pride. I think Subaru is meant to be Pride. That's his role here. But I at one point I was convincing myself Subaru was also the whale, so it's fine.
Oh wow,
that's a breach.
It was a theory that like there are Subarus that died, but then somehow didn't fully die, like they got resuscitated, and so that timeline continues. They eventually became some version of a Sin, and then has merged back into the regular timeline. But that's insane. That's not possible.
I like
wrong.
that, but no, there's no way.
Yeah. But that's because this anime has so many details, and the details matter so much. My head is spinning every time I watch it. Because there's everything is like, what does that mean? Why is the king gone? Who helped the dragon seal the witch away? Why did the witch get sealed away? Ah!
What? Whereas God, what's his name?
Roswell.
Yeah, where's Roswell been this whole time?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Why did Roswell, that one timeline, have a different course of action than this timeline? Every other timeline. Yep. There's guys. This anime goes past so many mystery plot points. Like every episode, there's like 3 things. It's like, wait, should we find out about that? Okay, we're just gonna keep going. All right, forward.
Here we go.
All right. Speaking of going forward, so Rem saves Subaru, or at least makes an attempt, but poor whatever her name is, she dies getting mangled and twisted.
She's not forgotten yet.
This scene is heartbreaking every time I watch it.
So his power is these, basically the witch's hands. These invisible hands come out and can grab stuff.
Unseen hands.
Subaru can see them. No one else can. And they manage to get a hold of Rem and just like twist her into horrible proportions. He leaves her behind, and then her broken body crawls to Subaru to cast one last spell to release his chains, so he's able to escape the cave. He carries her dead body all the way back to the mansion. He sees Ram laying outside with the dead children. Everyone's dead again. There was no change in the outcome. And this giant cat monster burst out of the mansion, says, "Sleep like my daughter," or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, sleep along with my daughter, and his everything starts flash freezing, which apparently is the apocalypse starting, and Subaru's head falls off.
So I gotta. This is a problem because Amelia's gonna die someday. I mean, of old age, of an accident, of murder, whatever. Does that mean as soon as her life ends, this world ends? Like.
Well, that's the contract.
That is the contract. I end the world if you end.
That's messed up.
Again, another mystery we need to know. What is Puck and Amelia's past, relationship? What is this contract? Why does the world end if Amelia dies?
There's an OVA about that. I haven't watched it yet. I actually discovered that it exists today. And it basically is just a conversation between the two of them for like an hour. That explains their. Yeah, I'm really curious. Yeah,
that has to be watched. I saw some clips from an OVA where there's a bathtub full of mayonnaise, because Subaru told Rem he likes mayonnaise, so she made a bathtub. Yes. He's like, that's so. Why are you so stupid?
Sweet. Stupid and sweet.
All right. Yeah, and this is one of the episodes that end with the credits just start rolling, and it's like, oh, the snow's still falling, his body's still frozen there.
His
And the
head's
snow
getting
starts.
buried.
Yep, the snow starts piling on his body as the credits are rolling. The final song is playing, and I'm just sitting there. I've seen it before, and I still was like slack-jawed, like,
Yeah.
dang, that's the way to end an episode. Holy crap!
Yep.
Which it's funny too, because as an audience viewer, you come to the realization, because this has happened twice now, where Amelia dies, terrible things happen because of Puck. But it doesn't dawn on Subaru that, oh, if I do nothing here, the world ends. Like, he's like, oh, I'll be fine if I just don't get involved. No, even if you did manage to run away to some other country, you're dead.
Actually, you were right that that's what should happen, but there is an entire if story that the author wrote where he did go with Rem and they ran away and they lived out their lives. So something happens if he doesn't get involved.
Also, wait, so we've seen Amelia die too, and Puck not do anything. Do you think it's not if she dies, it's if the witch is brought back in her body? That's the contract, that if the witch comes back in me and the world, so that the witch can't do what she wants. Because that's the witch cult's real goal, is to get a hold of Amelia to bring the witch back in her body.
That's right.
That's interesting because, yeah, in the very first episode, Amelia dies, but he dies at the same time, so we don't get to see what Puck does. Puck could go on a rampage. We don't know.
Could, yeah.
I can't think of any other times Amelia dies other than these. So I'm not sure.
So the question is, do you think the cult is successful in these two first timelines in bringing the witch back?
No, I don't.
No, because we're about to have another one where she dies, and the witch definitely did not come back in her body.
Mm-hmm.
And Puck still starts the apocalypse.
Yep.
So that's what I'm saying is, like, if he doesn't, because when he doesn't get involved,
they all die.
Ram gives Rem the message telepathically, and I assume that means she died, or in her dying moments she gives a last telepathic message to Rem.
I need to read that series, that if story. I've been avoiding them. Like, I know that they exist, and I know the basic premise of what happens up to the end of season 1, but I've been avoiding them because I know that they continue on and they kind of share and spoil some of things that happen after that, and I just don't want to do that. But what I would do, I think, is I would make it so that Amelia found out that he and Rem disappeared because of a message from Krush, and then Amelia went to the capital immediately. So then she was out of the location and couldn't be killed. That's what I would do.
Oh, maybe.
And I wonder if he did something like that, like remove her from the situation, because it has to be based on something that he did. And this would be Subaru's.
We should probably move on.
Yeah, we're rabbit holing. Rabbit
holing's fun.
You even warned us against this.
Yeah. Okay, so in this next version of the timeline, Subaru comes back to the Krush's manor, and there's a man there named Russell Fellow. He is the treasury of the Merchant Guild, but basically, if business is businessing, this man is there.
Yes.
And, so all you need to know is that this character's around, business is going down. That's kind of his point. And then Subaru goes to Krush, and he's like, "Hey, let's go save Amelia. You can help me." And she's like, "What do you want to give me?" He's like, "The satisfaction of being a good person. You can give me help." And she's like, "You're an idiot. I don't care."
Well, no, she lays out all the ramifications for helping with no compensation. Like, this is basically political suicide and could start a war.
And then he tries to come in with that card of, well, but what about the people? You can't let these villagers die. If you can save a life, aren't you going to? And she's like, those weren't my lives to protect.
Yeah, and if Amelia can't do it, then does she deserve to be ruler?
Exactly.
He also freaks out on her, screaming about how those cultists have to die. They have to die, those evil, horrible men. And she's like, not once have you said anything about saving Amelia.
Yeah, and if you notice, there's that white line in his eyes that he gets. Oh my goodness.
The line of insanity. Yep.
after this doesn't work, he storms out and he goes. He tells Rem, "Okay, you go ask the knights if they'll help us. I'll go check with the other candidates." He goes to Priscilla. Priscilla's like, "Yeah, if you lick my foot," and he goes to do it, and she's like, "How horrible of a person must you be to do this?" And kicks him and is like, "I was gonna beat you anyway, but no matter what camp you join, I will destroy them. I will kill you if I see you again."
This infuriates her so bad. Like you won't even stand up for yourself.
It's amazing how each three of these candidates just like expose his flaws in their very own unique way. But
it shows how each of them deserves to be a candidate too, and that's I loved that about it. Where it's like, what is the quality that this person has, or what is the experience or their approach that makes them suitable to be a leader? And boy, they all have it.
You know what gives me pause for calling Priscilla worst girl is the knight that serves her seems like a really good guy. And I'm like, but we don't get to see his face. Like, what's his story? And I feel like he's going to be important.
And to counter that, she mentions, and I don't know if she does this in the sub or not, but she mentions, if you want your face to look even worse, you will get this scum out of my face. I think that's why he wears a mask. She scarred him.
I wonder if
she scarred his face.
Maybe, but I doubt it. I think he came to her scarred, and she uses that as like a joking sort of
maybe
like motivation.
Or but she could. First girl.
We'll see. Yeah. Not one of the mysteries we want to rabbit hole on. I started it. I'm catching myself.
This is what I was talking about last episode, where there are so many interesting characters and stories. Yeah. This anime, it's just fantastic.
Yep.
So next, Subaru's walking and he actually runs into the next candidate, Anastasia. She's like, "Hey, why don't we just get a drink?" He runs to her little cat, second in command girl mage, whose name I didn't write down, but
Mimi.
Oh yeah.
Why are there all these knights and mercenaries that are just adorable in this world?
Yeah.
What I really liked about Anastasia, she's the demi-human candidate, right?
Yes.
Oh, Anastasia's not full human, huh?
No,
she is.
Yeah, she represents them, though.
Oh, she has the backing and support of the demi-humans. I see.
Mm-hmm. Or at least the ones in Kararagi. But yeah, I thought it was really funny how later on when we see the Iron Fang mercenary unit and they don't have their hoods up, a lot of them are actually not demi-humans. They're just regular guys, but they have cat ears on their hoods to make them look like they're demi-humans.
Or I had this thought about Amelia's hood, that they just build cat ears into a lot of hoods, because what if
a demi-human gets it?
What if a demi-human buys it? This works for both species now because there's room for ears.
Oh, I like that.
But I love that it like you said before, each one of these candidates exposes something about Subaru, and she does it in a really subversive way that I didn't catch twice in a row. I didn't catch it the first viewing, and I didn't catch it this viewing until she revealed it.
She sits down with him in this bar. They start talking. He's like, "I need a wagon." She's like, "I can give you a wagon." And they're talking about, "Hey, have you noticed this about the economy around here? Have you noticed this about going on?" He's like, "Yeah, I noticed this at Crucia's place." And she's like, "Aha! So that's going down at Crucia's place." She's like, I just want you to know I totally played you and got a bunch of information on my political opponent, and you literally walked into a trap, and you're kind of an idiot. You can have the wagon. Who cares what you want?" and then she says, "We're gonna leave," and everybody in the bar stands up, and every single patron is in her army, and they just march out, and he's just like, "Oh God." He gets played so hard. So yeah, that doesn't work well, but he does get the wagon. Him and Rem take the wagon and travel back to towards the mansion. They camp the night with some merchants in their wagons, and Subaru's like, "Hey, I will pay all of you to unload your wagons. I'll buy all your stock, basically, and you come to the village with me and help me evacuate the village." And they all agree, and so they all ride towards, out into the night. They reach the flugel tree, which is this giant, massive tree on top of a hill.
before we get into it, I just want to mention, because I missed it the first time, in one of the previous loops, he's like, hey, I need to get to the mansion. They're like, yeah, we can't take that way because it's covered in fog.
And they even say that in the white whale has been sighted.
Yeah.
And he's just like, meh. So yeah, he's been going the long way this whole time, which is why he always shows up late. This time they go straight. There hasn't been any sightings yet because it suddenly gets foggy and there's like a wagon to his right. They're talking to him and suddenly he looks and the guy's gone. He's like, hey, what happened to that wagon? And Otto, Otto's back. Otto's like, what guy? There was never a guy there. And then the whale attacks, and the reason is because the whale has a fog magic blast that if you get hit by it, you are erased from existence. You never, you're not in anyone's memory. No one knows who you were.
I love the he points the camera or the camera light of his phone into the darkness, and then just the eye opens. It's like, oh yeah, horror anime.
And this is another thing. This is another witch-based power that messes with time.
Does that too?
Because later a blank letter will be sent. That was because the guy who wrote the letter got erased from existence. So it's not just memory. You literally didn't exist in the past anymore.
That's why the letter was blank?
According to Mother's Basement.
That makes sense. I was wondering why it was blank.
That's wow. I didn't realize that.
Because I thought it was just memory. Like Rem and him must have still gone through the forest dog attack thing, like, and they just don't remember because he remembers, also because of the witch's power, I assume. But yeah, this is another time altering power, which I mean.
There's some issues that I have with this because, like you're pointing out with Rem and how, at some point when she disappears, they look and her room is empty. Basically, all her things are gone. Her possessions are gone. It's like she was never there. And if this is true about this guy not writing the letter, well, but was he responsible for sending it? Like, if he didn't exist, who put it in the mailbox? Like, there's so many different things there, steps. I just. Not the mailbox, but who gave it to the courier? You know what I mean?
Right. Like that piece of paper obviously still got folded and put into an envelope.
But if he wasn't in the timeline, then somebody else would have been assigned that role. Just like if Rem wasn't in the timeline, then that room would be assigned to a different
or because Subaru's not very literate, he had this person write it out for him. Subaru folded it up, gave it to a courier. So that action still happened. But the message was written by this other person.
Hey, time travel creates paradoxes. Always. You guys have got to accept it.
No.
If the person... Dude, because if the timeline undid it, then that means that it didn't just leave a blank there. It would have used someone else to fill that. Just like it didn't leave Rem's room blank, it actually put other things in there. All right,
tell us in the comments how wrong we are. Let us know who's right.
Thank you. Jason is on point for keeping us out of rabbit holes. The whale starts attacking, and Rem actually ends up sacrificing herself to buy time for the whale. But it keeps coming after them. And Otto, because of a comment Subaru makes after Subaru gets mad at him for forgetting Rem, realizes, oh, it's after you. And Otto basically pushes him off like, hey, you need to die for me. and leaves Subaru to die. And man, this scene is rough because Subaru starts running and he's like, I don't want to die. And
he's got broken limbs while he's running, so they're like flapping behind him. He looks like he's Naruto running.
And then he doesn't die. And I've never been like, oh, sometimes living's worse. This is so bad. Rem's erased from existence. Because we're the audience, we're like, hey, would you hurry up and die and bring back that character that other people love so much?
That we all love.
I was like that.
Okay, I do like Rem. Shoot, we didn't talk about Rem, did we?
Well, we expanded upon the mansion characters pretty hard in the first time.
But she gets when she has her big scene. Let's talk about it. She gets a lot. We even said last time she doesn't really get much fleshing out in that last thing. It's really here that we figure out who she is. But yeah, he makes it all the way back to the mansion. He wakes up and Ram is there, and he's like, Rem sacrificed herself, and Rem's like, "Who's Rem?" And he freaks out. He goes to Amelia, and he starts demanding, "Amelia, we gotta go now." And I can't explain. You won't listen to me anyway. They're still that uncomfortable because of their fight. But he's like, "We have to leave," and he's still kind of freaking out about all these different past couple attempts.
Yeah, he even threatens her, like, if you're not going to go, I'm going to make you.
And he decides, screw it. I don't care what happens to me. I'm telling her about Return to Death. And he does. And she dies instantly.
Interesting. The hands come for him, but then when they go away, he's like, I didn't feel the pain or fear this time.
Yeah, and then
someone else did.
She's laying bleeding on the ground. I don't know if I didn't notice this last time. I thought it only affected him. Why did it kill her?
Probably to punish him. So another thing Mother's Basement said that I found absolutely fascinating. How it's not just that she doesn't want him to tell other people about this power. It's something that they share that she's jealous of. And she wants it only for them. At least it seems that way. Because every time he tries to talk about it, she's like, no, it's only for us. Because the way the hands caress his heart, the way they come at him. But I just have to mention, I watched this scene a couple times. The animation of Amelia's body going limp it's so realistic and so heart-wrenching. It's fantastic studio, by the way.
I really like the idea that this power isn't working by a rule set, but by the will of a witch who's just a jerk.
Yeah.
And like, she's the one determining the save points. That probably makes the most sense. I know, Jeremy, we were talking about who that's determining save points. It's probably just her. Like, this is a good starting spot for him. I feel like he could turn it around from this spot.
Good reward here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was to punish him.
Okay. That's good. That's nuts because he uses it like it's a hard rule set so many times that I thought it was. But yeah, that what you're saying makes sense. Beatrice comes into the room.
I have a question.
Oh gosh.
So if she's jealous about him sharing it with someone else, when no other human is present and he's just saying it in front of a maw beast, why is she jealous?
When has he done that?
No, when he was falling from the whale.
From the whale.
You think the whale's just a maw beast?
Well, I mean, there is the possibility that it's a human, but why would I mean?
I don't know if it's a human. I think it's intelligent.
I think it's intelligent.
And also,
he did it with Ram in the first half of the season because Ram was not capable of hearing it. I don't think. I think he said it to the maw beasts.
I think it's less about who he's saying it to, but more about when he has the intention to talk about it. That's when it pulls her attention. I don't think she's watching all the time. I think it's like a couple key words or intentions of him will like the tripwire, and then all of a sudden she pays attention, and then she'll deal with it in that moment how she feels.
Yeah, Beatrice comes in the room, and I think the witch cult is attacking, so she sends him away.
No, I think she just sent him away because she didn't want to see him die in front of her. She's like, yeah, you're going to die, but I'm sick of watching people die. I don't want to see anybody else die. You can die over there.
Puck? You think she knows Puck is coming for him?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I would assume Beatrice would know about that. So
yeah.
That makes sense.
I thought it was interesting that she made the statement about Roswell before she did that, where she's like, I'm not like Roswell, which means that, at least from her perspective, Roswell doesn't mind seeing people die and suffer. That's a very interesting little subtlety from her.
Oh, I believe that 100%.
Oh, yeah.
While Roswell, I think, is on their side, nothing about him makes me think, good person.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, yeah, he is basically sent down the road from the mansion, and the cultists immediately find him. He's literally begging to die. He asked Beatrice to kill him too, and he's begging to die. And then Beetlejuice comes up, and Beetlejuice is about to attack him, and then Puck shows up and fights Beetlejuice, and then Puck turns into his true form, which is that giant cat we saw earlier, and he begins Armageddon. and freezes Beetlejuice and kills him. And then he starts talking to Subaru
about how he hates everyone. That was so crazy.
And he's like, I don't care if she can't be here. I just don't care, or something like that. And then Subaru starts freezing to death. And as he's freezing to death, he starts laughing like Beetlejuice. And it literally took another person's video to point out to me that was not. I thought it was Subaru going insane, and it's not. It's literally Subaru being possessed.
Yeah, I didn't catch that either. But it makes sense because Subaru says in his mind, like, wait, that's not my voice. Why am I laughing? He doesn't understand what's going on.
I 100% thought like, oh, he's having a mental break.
Yeah.
And because I've seen so many connections between him and Beetlejuice anyway, I'm like, oh, it kind of makes sense he would start acting like the crazy
following
psycho.
the path.
Yeah. No, Beetlejuice can hop bodies, and he's hopped to the nearest body, and it's freezing again.
But it seems to be only people touched by the witch that he can hop to.
Yes, you have to have the witch scent.
There's a couple of things that happen with Subaru that make it seem like it might be more than that, or at least connected to it, but other people don't realize that's what it is, because the issue he has with his gate, not being able to control it, also having that compatibility that Julius exposes later when he tries to sync up with everybody's gate, and that was super, super powerful. If the possession is through the gate, then it would make sense that Subaru would be vulnerable. And that could be caused by the witches messing with him, could have weakened his gate or opened it up. Or maybe that's the reason his gate being so open could be the reason why she grabbed him in the first place too. I don't know, but that's the impression I got. It's the gate is the root of it.
I agree. There's another thing that I noticed this time. Is that Beetlejuice being weak to spirits, and then the Subaru having spirit affinity. We talked in our last episode about him being able to go into Beatrice's room, and we talked about, like, was it just he just randomly kept finding the door, or was it a special thing? And I really do think it's a special thing. I think he has
spirit affinity. Something's
going on with spirits for these witch members. I don't even think it's just Subaru. I think it's the witch and the spirits have something to do with each other, and spirits seem to be able to damage the witch. It doesn't Puck say he knows the witch?
Yeah,
I think he did.
Yeah. Okay, rabbit hole. Turn away. So when he awakens this time in the market, he grabs Rem and he asks her to run away with him. This is like a 20-minute scene of them just literally having a conversation about, run away with me. Rem does this whole, she says no, but she's like, this would be our life. We'd have kids, I'd get a job. You're kind of stupid, so you do hard labor.
You got to go to school first.
I could teach you. You eventually learn, then you would get a job. Eventually we'd start our own store. I would die first. Like, very typical, female I've plotted out our whole lives. And you realize Rem already thought of this whole entire scenario, not just when he asked her to go. But she rejects him, and he's like, I'm the worst. I hate myself. And man, if you have problems with like depression and stuff, and you see this, it's like, oh God, that is. He hits on some points, and then she turns around and tells him all the things she loves about him. I've seen your heroic side. I've seen your good. You're not the strongest, but you still were out there. You still sacrificed yourself for me. So what did you guys think of Rem in this half?
It was so satisfying to watch their relationship grow. And that one of the things that she loves about him is his devotion to Amelia. And that, yes, she does have feelings for him, but that he's more of a pedestal hero status to her than he is romantic love. I mean, I'm sure that's something that she would like, but I don't think that's a driving motivation for her with her feelings towards him.
I mean, his head touches her chest once, and she's like, "Thank you for the treat." So yes, she's into it.
Yeah, no, totally. But she even tells him, like, yeah, your stalwartness towards Amelia is one of the things that attract me to you. So she sees that. But she, man, you know, this turnaround from suspicion, I will murder you on spot, to I've fantasized about running away together with you, is a fantastic turnaround, and it is well worth it. Like it's and well earned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was really cool how she gave good justifications for that change too, because it is quite a jump to flip like that. And she gave really good justifications. Basically, she was living as a shadow of her sister, and with his actions and his words, he kind of woke her up, shook her a little bit, and helped her realize that she should be her own person and should go in the direction that she wants to go and seek out the things she wants. Um, and that this made such a huge impact on her emotionally that it just kind of anchored him as a liberator of her, self-made prison. And yeah, that was really cool. But seeing, I think her devotion to him without that requirement that he reciprocate equally, I agree with everything you said. I think it's also rooted in the fact that it's because she also loves Amelia as, someone that she herself is devoted to. I wonder what would happen if it was somebody that she didn't know.
Oh,
I wonder at that
she's
point.
the jealous type. She gets
Yeah,
jealous
she
of the
is.
dragon.
Yeah.
Like,
So
don't
I
look
think
at him.
I think she'd be like, I'm better. I'm gonna compete with that person. Whereas with Amelia, she's like, I'm gonna subdue my desire to compete because I really care about Amelia and I care about you. So I'm gonna let you know and save a little bit of that love for me. I'm
Yeah.
here, but
I also think there's something that he's loved Amelia since the moment since Rem met him. That and he's unwavered in that. It's literally part of the package, and so she, it's not something she can hate on. It's part of who he is. So obviously, I am a Amelia and Subaru shipper. We have had our battles in the waifu wars. With that said, I absolutely love Rem. And one of my biggest concerns is, like, please don't let her be brokenhearted. I don't want to see her hurt because of Amelia and Subaru being together. And so she is a fantastic character. The way they took her as, like, she's the mirror of this other character, and then they use this whole arc to just really show how special she is, how quirky she is. The fact that she develops her own kind of sense of humor. Ram already kind of had her sassiness, and now Rem's kind of playful is coming out, and it's really fun, especially like in battles. And then she has her berserker mode. She's a great character. And one of my favorite things about this scene is when he talks, the clouds cross the sun and they fall into shadow, and because it starts, they're in the sun, she's talking, he starts talking about how much he hates himself, the clouds block out the sun, and then she starts talking again, the sunlight starts breaking through the clouds. It's such a cool visual for what's happening in the story. By the end of the conversation, they're hugging, she's crying, and the sun is everywhere, and it's like, oh, it is a beautiful scene of just two characters dishing out all their emotions, and really Subaru coming to terms with what he needs as a character versus what he wants as a character. This is the moment his arc hits differently. From here on out, he's saying, I'm going to go save her because I want to, not because I have to for Amelia. He's no longer hanging stuff on her. He's taking actions for himself. This is a great moment and a really pivotal moment in this entire season.
And he's starting from zero.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Zero.
Exactly. Yeah. This is the namesake of the anime. Like, this moment is where the anime gets its name.
Yeah, the best protagonist and the best girl.
Yep.
So after this, he approaches Krush for an alliance again, but this time he's already enlisted Anastasia. He's already got
Russell.
that. Yep, he's already got the mercenary group hired. He's got the treasurer guy is back. He's in on it.
Russell Fellows.
And he tells Krush, like, you're planning on going after the White Dragon. I know you've been collecting stuff. Basically taking all these little tidbits he's been ignoring the past couple time tries and finally realizing, oh, okay, I get it now. You're about to
He's-
go into
He's
battle.
pretty bright too, because he connects some dots that were
Yes,
not
he does.
explicitly connected for him in the previous timelines.
And one thing I really appreciate about the storytelling model that they used here is they didn't spend another half episode watching him go from place to place,
Yeah.
fixing not only his mistakes, but also like setting up this meeting. I like that they just kind of sprang it on the audience as well.
Mhm.
And he basically promises, I'll tell you exactly where the white whale will be, because he had looked at his phone. He knows the exact minute the white whale will show up, even though he's almost out of battery. And he also promises part of the mining of the magic crystals that they use to create shields around Roswell's territory, which we never see how Roswell reacts to that. I'm very interested
Yeah.
to see how the
Subaru doesn't really have any authority to promise
Yeah.
that.
Exactly.
I'm assuming Roswell. I mean, Roswell does seem to care about protecting the village, and that is important to him. So I'm assuming Roswell will be okay with it. But I am really interested to see what he thinks. We never get that reaction.
Yeah.
And Krush is like, dude, that was some sweet negotiating. I am in, and Anastasia's in, and we have a plan. We have an alliance, and they gather this army. And my favorite part, Wilhelm being like, thank you for giving me this opportunity to avenge my wife. Bowing to this young kid who's been a punk for these past 3 time loops. All these old soldiers show up, people who have lost friends that they can't even remember anymore. All these mercenaries show up, all these demi-humans show up, and they go out. They go to the giant tree, and the alarm. He sets an alarm on his phone. The alarm goes off, and they're like, "Where's the whale?" And it's literally right above them. And the battle begins. We don't have time to go over all the details of the battle. It's a great freaking battle.
It's 3 episodes long. It's so awesome.
And this whole time, it's hanging over your head that if he dies, he's going to have to redo all the negotiations. He's going to have to redo everything. He's going to lose that conversation with Rem. Like, he can't die right now.
And even if he does survive, if too many losses happen, this is not the battle he's interested in anyways.
This is literally just a step towards the actual goal of his plan.
One thing I would love to point out about this particular battle is him hitching a ride on an enormous ice spike just so he can lure the thing down to the ground. That was brilliant. I mean, completely unrealistic for his skill set.
Oh yeah.
Like the logistics of that, just like I see him falling the moment the thing takes off.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic storytelling.
One thing I was going to do is, instead of actually recapping the whole battle, I thought everyone could just like point out one thing that they really loved about it. So, Jeremy, how about you?
I think the coolest thing was when the whale split into 3 whales, and the one was smart enough to stay up above and use these 2 fake whales basically. The
whale has Naruto's shadow clone power.
So one thing I want to point out. One thing I want to point out is usually in animes like this, especially with a huge tree like this, the tree is something to be of like awe-inspiring and like protected, and that's the first thing they go to when they're desperate for a weapon. And I love it. I love that they're like, the whale needs to go, so bye tree.
And they set that up too, because there's like, man, people are carving names into this thing. This thing is sacred. And then his plan is like, hey, let's just drop it on the whale. Screw this thing.
Yep.
He kind of stole by the whale having 3. That moment of like they've been fighting it won't drop out of the air. Literally, Wilhelm is like running up and down it, cutting off body parts, and it cuts out its eye. He's slicing it, and then they look up and there's 3, and they're like, oh my god, there's 3. We haven't been able to hardly damage 1. That's such a cool moment. The dread that falls over the army. And then, Subaru figures it out, and they realize it's Shadow Clone rules. And unlike Naruto, who always puts himself in danger unless the Shadow Clone stay behind, so the bad guy thinks he's attacking the wrong thing, the whale hid in the wrong spot, and they do manage to kill him. And Wilhelm's scene to his wife. This whale killed his wife. We see their backstory of how they fell in love, and at the moment they got together, she's like, say I love you, and he's like, I'll tell you sometimes. And then it doesn't even say it, you just know he never did. He's just not that guy. He's not a guy who uses words. And he standing on the whale corpse. I love you. You know, I tell my wife I love her all the time. I tell my kids I love them all the time. But it's not the exact same because I tell them all the time. How often do you tell people you care about how much they mean to you? And if you were gone or they were gone tomorrow, would you regret how often you didn't do it? It hits so straight to the heart in like 5 minutes of actual storytelling.
Right.
Yeah.
Krusha's speech also was a great moment. How she's just like, because the men are just in fear, and she's like, that idiot up there is unarmed and he's charging in. What are you idiots doing?
The weakest guy is still fighting, so why are you stopping?
Yep.
I love that.
I also really like Ricardo, the wolf man, who's just like, hey, I'm cool too. I'm gonna help.
Yeah, that hit should have killed me. I think it's lighter.
Yeah, so after the battle, he meets with Krush, and she basically is like, hey, I'm giving you the credit instead of taking it, so this won't just help me for the throne. This will be shared with Emilia and Anastasia. I'm assuming we'll get some credit too. Obviously, she said, she's like, no matter what happens, no matter if we're enemies on the battlefield, you're my friend for life now. I will always think highly of you. And he's like, man, I could almost fall in love with you, except for I'm already in love with 2 other girls, and this is not a harem. And she even says, like, I thought about it, but yeah, you're an idiot. So
Yeah.
And she tells him, okay, I know you have more stuff you want to do. Take 20 of the unhurt soldiers with you, and go on and fight your battle. And he's like, wow, that's a lot. And she's like, yeah, go ahead. And so he gets Wilhelm, he gets Ricardo, and the little mages. Well, actually, one gets replaced. So, and then Julius from the last season, the guy who beat him up, shows up with additional forces that they had saved just for the witches cult. And I love when he says to the little guy, you're tiny. No, I'm Mitty. And he's upset Julius is there. He's like, I hate this guy. Why is he here? Guys, Julius was my favorite character this time around. As much as I love Wilhelm and Subaru and everybody, Julius's arc from the jerk from last time, and then clearly being like, no, this is like the nicest guy. He's almost as nice as Reinhardt, except for he's a little more proud.
I thought the same thing. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because in the very first viewing, I thought the same thing as well. Like this guy's a jerk. Why is he such a meanie to Subaru? This time around, I made sure to pay special attention to Julius's facial expressions in just about every interaction with Subaru. And he's just a genuinely nice guy. He just got a little too prideful when his knighthood was, tarnished, if you will. Like, how dare you call yourself a knight when you don't do what I do? Like, past that, he's a super cool dude.
And you realize there's all this context to what he actually did. Like, it was also showing Subaru, if you want to be a knight, this is what you need to be able to do. Like, you can't just be posing in a room. You have to be able to whoop some butt.
I wonder how much of it also had to do with the other knights. So there were a couple statements made where Julius was essentially punished for his actions, and it hurt his reputation. You saved him. But they say you saved Subaru, and it kind of makes me wonder if the other knights might have been more hostile towards Subaru and possibly meted out, death, if Julius hadn't dealt with it in public. I don't know though, but yeah, Julius was really cool. And I also love his form of magic. His version of the spirit arts is really interesting. Although I did notice that they made a comment about concerning his mana usage, and he's a spirit arts user, which uses mana from the atmosphere. But they were still talking about him having to worry about conserving his mana. So I was a little confused about that.
Could it just be overuse of his gate?
That's possible. They did say mana and not gate, but they may be referring gate. That's possible. It's a.
And I should clarify. Actually, the character Julie shows up because.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
He'll be
Julius
upset
points
with you
out
otherwise.
a knight would never work with mercenaries. So
Yeah.
call me Julie.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, Subaru shares the details of the plan. Um, him and Julius actually talk while traveling. They kind of make up, but we find out there's more for them to say. Subaru draws the cultists into the woods. He finds Beetlejuice at his hideout. He tries to trick him. It doesn't go very well, but it works good enough because those little major kitty girls and boy destroy the hideout. Wilhelm jumps down and cuts Beetlejuice in half. They're like, okay, the leader's dead, and Subaru's like, wait, is he gonna come back? He seems like the kind of guy who comes back. So they like blast his body with magic attacks. Like, okay, he's not coming back.
I love how it's his weeb like video game. Like, this dude's coming back. I know he is.
Yes.
Yeah, and they take the gospel from him. So there's a book that Beetlejuice has that basically tells him the future, that is
His
written
future.
in his future.
Mhm.
Again, time travel, which okay, but nobody can read it and nobody wants to touch it. Like no. But Subaru takes it. Then they go back to basically where their base is. Everyone's celebrating. This is going great. We've already killed a couple of the fingers, which are like the head of the other factions of this cult in the area that worked under Beetlejuice. That we just got to take out these fingers. But then the invisible arms kill like 5 guys, and one grabs Subaru and drags him into the forest. And this finger, who acts just like Beetlejuice, and we found out is Beetlejuice because he can body hop to these other fingers.
You hear this female voice, and you immediately go, "Oh God, that's Beetlejuice."
Yeah. My brain is trembling.
Guys, I didn't. I forgot that he could do this at this scene. I'm like,
serious?
Like,
oh, that's funny.
the cult, you go insane and you just start copying his mannerisms. That's like what they are taught to say. It wasn't until Subaru ran into the forest and I was like, oh yeah, now I remember. Our weakness is revealed that if like water or something touches the invisible arms, you can see them. So Wilhelm and the mages, they save Subaru here. They go to the village. They fight. No, they got to convince the villagers, hey, we need to leave. And they're like, oh, it's all Amelia's fault. And Subaru's like, hey, that's not nice. Don't be racist. And he's like, but we need to evacuate anyway. And he's starting to figure, he's like, okay, I need to get Julius to go with me to get Amelia, because then she'll listen if she sees that I'm, kind of made up for that past mistake. This will really smooth things over. But then Felix is like, hey, I need to talk to you about something. And they go to one of the merchants that they brought to transport the villagers. And he's like, this guy is actually a spy. And they freeze him. But then it turns out it's actually Beetlejuice too. And he's like, hey, there's a bomb in here. And there's an explosion goes off. When Subaru awakens, he was protected from the blast, but the village is under attack by the cult. Villagers are dead everywhere. The soldiers are fighting them off. Wilhelm is fighting another person with Beetlejuice inside him. He wins, but that Beetlejuice self-destructs. Wilhelm gets hurt. Subaru has another finger Beetlejuice, chase him into the forest, tricks him into getting eaten by Mob East.
It's a great scene.
Yeah.
He comes back and there's one more, and Amelia shows up and takes him on. Amelia and Puck take on Beetlejuice and just destroy him. They make ice crystals in the air so they can see his hands. They basically hit him with this thing that's so powerful the hands get knocked back and he gets frozen to the ground, and then they freeze him to death. Except for there's one
crucify him.
They do.
Yeah, they do.
There's one person left to jump to. They're all standing around celebrating. He's about to run up to Amelia, and Subaru's like, I gotta go. And he just runs off into the forest. Julius and Felix go after him, and he's like, I'm not in control of myself. And man, Julius puts his sword up to him, like right up to his cheek, and Beetlejuice in Subaru's body just turns and it cuts the cheek open, and it's so visceral.
Yeah.
But basically, Subaru, like, you have to kill me. Please kill me.
I choked up so hard at this, and I didn't in the sub, but in the dub, like the way the dub acting was so good, and the emotional beat hit so hard where he's begging Felix to kill him, and I'm just like, no.
Felix can only stun him. It has to be Julius is the only one who can damage him and kill him. And Julius, this guy who's like, I'm trying to make up for what I did to you, and now I have to murder you. Yeah. He does kill him, and Subaru wakes up after the battle with the whale. Now, this means the save point changed because he's actually died further along in the timeline than this. Mm-hmm. So something changed. And then so he sits down with all the mercenaries. He's like, okay, the bad guy can jump bodies, so we need to get him last. We need to kill everybody he can jump to. Also, you guys should know he can jump into me. So and he asks, like, what do we do about that? But then we leave that and we go see things from Amelia's point of view. Puck, she had tried to warn the villagers because the barriers were breaking down.
Yeah.
And trying to get them to leave. They wouldn't listen to her. And then Wilhelm shows up, and we find out basically Subaru, because I skipped over where Ram is suspicious because of the blank letter that we talked about. Mm-hmm. So Subaru did everything right this time. He warned Ram early. Sorry about the blank letter. That was a misunderstanding by carrying like a big cartoon sign while he rode the dragon. So him and Wilhelm go straight to the mansion, go straight to Amelia, explain what happened, and basically get her to say, let's evacuate the village so that she's, the one saving everybody. And Subaru is wearing, you'll recognize it as the cloak that Amelia wore in the beginning of the anime. It's a identity hiding cloak.
And Ram is so unimpressed with him during this time.
He's walking around being like, I'm just a mysterious guy. Hey, don't you want to save the village? Like, kind of pushing her to take the action she needs to.
Did you even ask the kids if they want to go with you?
So yeah, they go back to the village, and Amelia and the kids are all put into the same wagon, and she's feeling bad because of all the racism, and they're basically like, yeah, we know you. You're a good person. You were with Subaru. We want to help you. This is another part thing where Mother's Basement point out that one of the girls can recognize Subaru in the hood and knows who Amelia is, even though she had worn a hood earlier. Amelia usually, when she goes to the village, wears the hood so no one knows there's a half-elf walking around. That's why she has a magic cloak that conceals her identity. But she had thrown it at Subaru in their fight, which I thought was hilarious.
Yep.
So yeah, they put her in the cart that has the explosives. They put her in the cart and send her and the children away. And then Subaru goes and faces off with Beetlejuice. And this time he does really good acting of like, I'm totally loyal, totally want to join your cult. I could totally be one of your fingers. And Beetlejuice is like, I love you. You're awesome. Until he's like, surprise attack. And he gets Beetlejuice to chase him. And there's like, he's riding on the magic hands, the invisible hands, sitting like his hands wrapped around his knees like a petulant child. Like, you stole my ass.
Yes.
Even the little, like he's riding a invisible magic carpet.
Yeah, yes, no one can see him. Exactly. He just looks like a guy punched.
Yep.
They go to this cliff face where Julius is waiting, and basically the way they have to beat him is Julius has a spirit that lets him share his psychically connect with other people. So he is watching through Subaru's eyes as he himself fights.
They also share pain, which I found was interesting.
Yeah, they're sharing
senses.
A lot. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Two characters who didn't see eye to eye are now literally sharing their eyes. It's great.
So cheesy. It's so cheesy, but yeah.
It's not cheesy because it's not blatant.
So cheesy.
Like, you have to like dig into it and be like, oh, there's thematic reason for this too. Besides all, but it's also logical why this happened. They set it up. They explain that this power exists, and it all makes sense logically in storytelling, but it also works thematically. Do you know how hard that is to pull off?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Just saying. All right. So basically, Julius kicks this guy's butt. He does get hit a couple times because as he gets used to having to fight basically in third-person camera.
Yeah.
But then he does manage to do it. I do love the scene where Beetlejuice puts up the dirt dome. And Subaru throws the firebomb that explodes it, and it hits the cartoon eyes for just a second. Cartoon eyes of just dirt and eyes.
What's that?
Then they stab him. And so Beetlejuice jumps into Subaru, and Subaru's plan is he starts talking about return to death, and that means Beetlejuice has to come face to face with the witch, and the witch is like, "Oh, you're not him," and smacks him outside
Yes.
of Subaru. And Subaru's like, "Oh, that only took one try. I was gonna do that like 100 times." And I didn't get this. This is again something that was pointed out in a YouTube video. Beetlejuice hits the canyon wall and crushes his own body because spirit users can actually kill the real him. He actually saved his life by destroying his body here so that they would.
That's why Julius was saying all the elements of my attack, rainbow sword, tear your soul apart. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's why I'm wondering, is this body, is it really him, or is he a spirit monster of some kind?
No, because he even says, I haven't had a body fit me this good in a long time.
Yeah, I think he started as a person and he's just jumped bodies. Yeah,
I do too. I do think he started as a human, whether it's from from Earth or from this world. It doesn't matter. I do think he was a human at start, and then
that makes sense.
Whatever Satella did made him into this, whatever power Satella gave him.
Yeah.
Man, guys, I am excited to meet the other sins because there's more.
Right. Well, I mean, we've taken out 2 of them by the end of this.
Yeah. Yep.
But yes, I agree.
Okay, so then they realize, hey, remember the bomb? Bomb's in the cart with Amelia and the kids. So riding with Otto, who has the power to hear what animals say, so they run through the
Ram's ability, right?
No,
yeah, kind of.
Ram can see through animals. This guy can talk to animals.
Yeah, it's similar.
Oh, okay. And
they're telling him shortcuts in the forest. So they're like driving over waterfalls and cliffs and canyons and cross country.
Literally drive off a cliff.
And Otto's like, I've never felt so alive. But then they start getting chased by a big giant monster. It looks like something out of Studio Ghibli. It's Beetlejuice with just like his head and his shoulders on just the moving arms in this blob.
I love it because Otto's like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Don't look back here." He's like, "But what is it?" And he's like, starts
You're just making me more curious.
It's just a dude's face on this black monster with multiple legs. He's like, "You're making me want to look."
Yeah.
And I love that he's been killed by Beetlejuice so many times. He's just nonchalant about it. Like, it's just this big mass monster.
The comment, "How many times do I have to kill you?" is such a I'm done with this RPG. Yeah, I get it. Final form. Come on.
So true.
So he ends up throwing oil, and then using a spirit fire, which can, because it's a spirit, it can damage Beetlejuice, lights him on fire, throws the gospel so that he'll let go of the wagon. It works. And he manages to punch him, and then now he's just being dragged. Beetlejuice has one arm left on the wagon, which he's destroyed a little bit. And the book comes flying back, and Subaru writes in it "the end" in Japanese characters, and it shows it to him. What if Subaru wrote the book, and this is foreshadowing? That's guys. It doesn't stop. There's so many details that you're like, is this foreshadowing? Is this foreshadowing of something important? I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Gotta get to the end. This defeats Beetlejuice once and for all. They catch up to the wagons. Amelia's wagon stops. He jumps in heroically, grabs the bomb, jumps onto his dragon. She's like, "Why are you doing this?" He's like, "'Cause I love you," but in a sincere way.
Such a Troy line.
Yep. Yeah. No, this matters. This is more than just a Troy line because Subaru has no issue telling Amelia, You're the prettiest woman on the planet. I could lay in your lap. I adore you but he's never been real with her. This is the first time he's really told her how he feels, where everything else is just that facade, that hey, I'm playfully playing with you.
I think you love that moment. Like, the animation's so good. He jumps into this wagon, he locks eyes with her, and his determination falters for just a moment.
He has to shake himself like. Focus,
he has to okay, I got a job to do.
They were almost back to the site of the whale battle, so he actually takes the bomb, throws it in what's left of the whale carcass, runs away, has to be saved by his dragon. Like they literally fall off, and the dragon like curls around him to protect his body. He wakes up an hour later in Amelia's lap, and they have a conversation.
The whale and the flugel tree are gone. Like that explosion was that big.
Well, and they said it would take out like villages or something like that.
I think they said like a small village. I was assuming it was the same explosion that happened in that previous timeline.
Yeah, it would be. It was the same bomb.
But this was way bigger to take out the flugel tree and the whale carcass.
What happens when you put an explosion into a container?
Oh, that's true.
All right. Anyway, going to the end, they have a conversation. They both basically
fantastic conversation. It's such a great contrast to 13.
Right. This is the opposite end of the spectrum of their fight. Where they're making up. Hey, this is what I've learned as a character, and I love you. And she's like, well, I've only known you 3 days. He's like, yeah, I get that. That's absolutely fine. But she's also not like that's weird. She's very happy. And this is a very tender moment between them. Mm-hmm. And that's the end. Unless you watch the director's cut edition, which after the credits, they're in the wagon. Petra. The Petra little girl is like, no, I'm in love with him.
You got way more time.
Oh, I gotta tell you about Rem. Rem, you know how I confessed to you, and Rem said nice things. Basically, she told me she loves me like I told you I love you, and I'm so sorry about that. And it cuts to it's a great camera shot because you can't see it, Amelia, because she's behind his head, and then the camera shifts and she comes into focus, and she's like, "Who's Rem?"
Wait,
and that's the end.
What? That was at the end of the entire. No,
that's the director's
that is the
cut
final
ending.
scene.
No, really?
Yeah.
Because I saw you typing that, and I thought you were talking about the previous timelines where Rem died by the fog. But we know for a fact Rem did not die from the fog this time because she went back for healing.
Absolutely. But they do have its body with them back at the Capitol. And what if that fog is still in there? But also I don't think Rem's dead because I don't see the writers like let's redo this timeline again just to save Rem.
God.
And Rem's definitely in the next season. But something's going on. Emilia doesn't know who Rem is.
I'm really confused. I did not see that part of the ending.
So I didn't see it in the English dub because I watched the last 2 episodes in English dub. I didn't see it. But I'd mostly watched this on HBO Max, which has the Crunchyroll collection. And I watched it there. I went back because I was like, I swear to gosh, I remember that scene happening. And I went back and finished it in the sub. Fast forwarded to this scene, and it was definitely there after the credits, 100%. All right. While Jeremy looks that up, let's go. Yep. Any thoughts on the ending before we go to final review?
But excited for next season.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a lot of characters in the trailers for season 2 that I don't recognize, and I want to know who these people are.
Real quick, in the trailer, Roswell's in bed in bandages. What the? Roswell?
Really? I don't remember that.
So as of now, there's actually been a few episodes, and so people who are following along currently will know a lot more than us. But I've seen the OP for the next season. It is fantastic. It has shots of his parents and Earth, and we were talking at the beginning before this podcast. Isekais don't do that. Isekais don't care about where you came from, and the fact that this one does is got me so excited. Again, Subaru is not a character that he's here for escapists. He's here to grow up. He's here to face the real world because this is a real world. Unlike how to summon a demon lord or slime. Okay, let's go to final reviews. But everyone should get hype. Jason, what'd you think?
6 out of 5.
Yeah, yes.
But seriously, like I said at the beginning, the levels of storytelling. This is such a dense packed narrative that I have yet to see a match for. At nearly every single major character in this anime is interesting in their own right and has nearly their own character growth. And a lot of them get very little screen time and they're still impactful. this has a world that is just so well done, and that's on top of the main character who is fighting multiple battles, not only internally but externally, and comes to a conclusion in a satisfying way. It like I said, masterpiece.
All right, Jeremy, how about you?
Definitely 5 out of 5. The music, the art, the storytelling, the pacing, the characters, their arcs. And like Jason was saying, one of the big things for me is also how the world seems to go on. Like the characters in the world are making other decisions that they matter. And it's not all revolving around Subaru. He's just kind of bouncing from thing to thing, and we're paying attention to him. But it does feel like the world is going on outside of what's happening to Subaru. And I'm loving that. That is so great. It makes it feel like a real world that he's in, and not just a story that we're hearing. So yeah, 5 out of 5 all the way. I can't wait to start season 2. I'm going to wait because I want to binge watch it, but I can't wait.
Yeah, I thought about going along with it, but I'm gonna wait till we do it for the podcast. And then we can. That way, I won't be able to stop reaching out to you guys and stuff. I have to make sure we do it together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same here.
5 out of 5 for me as well. And here's why. This anime's full name is ReZero: Starting Life in Another World. At the end, they show that the title has changed, and it changes to ReZero: Life in a Different World from Zero. His life has actually started now. Like, he's actually become a true person. And we went on that journey with him in this season. Even if there wasn't another season that I'm very excited about right around the corner, this was an amazing story. I've said many times, is the favorite anime of the podcast. It's still very much true. The only one thing that's ever come close is Promised Neverland for me. And I think I'm gonna fall down a rabbit hole here, depending on how accessible books are and stuff. I loved it. It's so good, and I just think it's definitely worth a watch if you can stand the main character. All right. Our next anime is going to be Tower of God. That had just finished last season. It was based on a webcomic, I believe, and it has a very old visual art style. I've heard some good things and I've heard some mediocre things, but we'll see there. It has a very interesting looking story, so we're gonna watch that next. I believe it's just 12 episodes, but I'm not 100% sure. If you want to reach us, you can on our Twitter at Baka Podcast. You can reach us on our email, theanimebakaclub@gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you found the podcast. Let us know what you think about ReZero. Let us know, without spoilers, what you're excited about for season 2. And anything else you want to talk about anime-wise. We love hearing from you guys. And with that, we need to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Who's Rem?
Who is Rem? Sayonara.